you are aware, there are nearly, or there are over. So please, let's go straight to the business of the day. We start with the individual introduction of members. On our left, it goes round.
Senate Committee and House of Reps. I greet Chief Oransaye and all other stakeholders. Bolu Ajikunle is my name. I represent Ondo South Central District. Member. Thank you. Committee on Narcotics, Drugs and Corruption.
Chairman, distinguished senators, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, Nathaniel Akumbi is my name. I'm from the state of Osun. I represent Oriade Federal Constituency, member of Drug and Narcotics Committee of House of Reps. Thank you.
A round of applause.
The chairman, distinguished senators, my colleagues, my name is Johnson Akin Adeola, representing Iloluchi, Okibu, and the Federal Constituency. I'm a member of this committee. I'm from Ondo State. The chairman, distinguished colleagues, invited guests, my name is Abraham Mercy, representing Adavi, Federal Constituency. I'm from Kogi State. Our chairman, senators, my colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. John J is my name. I'm from Benue State. I represent Wokotaka Federal Constituency, member of this committee.
Mr. Chairman, permit me to stand on existing protocol. My name is Honorable Engineer Fort Dike. I represent the Hala Federal Constituency in Anambra State. I'm a member of the House Committee.
Our chairman, distinguished senators, my colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ganama Titsi Kwaga. I am from Adamawa State, representing Madagali Richka Federal Constituency, and I'm a member of the House Committee on Drugs, Narcotics, and Financial Crimes.
I cited somebody talking about the Component 3 Program Manager of the Justice for All of DFID British Council. I am referring to Mr. Emmanuel Uche, Mr. Uche of the individuals and groups in our of the Senate Committee on Drugs. Nigeria's Apex Bank cannot be here without being represented. Please, without being recognized. The representative of the Central Bank. Central Bank has some very wonderful people. Commission. And of course, the Ministry of Justice, representatives of the Ministry of Justice should please stand. Alright, so we'll acknowledge them. Ministry of Justice, Secretary of the Exchange Commission, DSS, an applause for them. J4A will have recognized. And then members of the press, on the Senate Committee on Drugs, Narcotics and Financial. Please, every other person in our midst is Nikon is here. Nikon. Thank you very, very much. Please, every other agency that is here that will not recognize, do not hesitate to draw our attention. It is not that we don't appreciate you, we actually do. Brief remarks from a representative of DFID Justice for All. Emmanuel Uche is the chair.
Fight against corruption. It's quite heartwarming to see the speed with which the anti-corruption bills are being considered under this particular house. We have never had it so good. We have never had it so good. And I was speaking to Senator La this morning. I was saying this house would have written its name and the name of the members of this committee in gold for posterity. as far as the fight against corruption is concerned in Nigeria. It is unprecedented. Yes, we have given some support here and there to review old bills that relate, and old acts that relate to anti-corruption fight. We have also helped to put up the new bills, working with the Federal Ministry of Justice and other development partners. The governments of the past have also done their best to put in agencies in place to fight corruption. But all of them will amount to nothing if there is no appropriate legislative and legal framework for them to do their work and prosecute the fight against corruption. It is therefore interesting to know that at this auspicious time in history, we have a handful of people who are committed to saying against all odds, even if there is nothing else we can give to this country, we need to give this country a future and put it back on its feet. And I sincerely want to salute the courage, the temerity, the commitment, and the passion that Honorable Rosoye, Mr. Rosoye, you know, but someone said he who does this is more than an honorable. Senator La and Honorable Jagaban and all your team members, I want to say a very big kudos for the great work you have done. And posterity will have you to thank for what you're doing for us. I sincerely want to encourage everyone around the room. Let's please do all that we need to do to ensure that from the next dispensation, we should not be talking about these laws again, but rather implementation and moving to the next level. Again, I wish you the best, and I see there is hope for this country. Thank you very much.
Another round of applause for Justice for All. Once again, I say, please, a round of applause as assistants to this stage.
The chair of the House Committee, distinguished senators and honorable members of the House of Representatives, distinguished stakeholders, members of the press. Let me say that I am profoundly delighted to be here this morning to this retreat for the establishment of the NFIC, a retreat organized by the Joint Committee of the National Assembly on Drugs, Narcotics, and Financial Crimes. It is therefore imperative for me to begin this brief remark by thanking the organizers of this retreat, led by distinguished Senator Ola and Honorable Adam Jagaban, for inviting the Presidential Committee on FATF to participate in this retreat. Members of my committee wish to place on record our gratitude to Mr. President through the Attorney General for his commitment to strengthening the legal framework for addressing anti-money laundering and the financing of terrorism. Let me equally thank the President of the Senate, Senator David Bonaventure, and the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Right Honorable Amin Tambua, for their leadership and partnership with other arms of government, particularly the executive, in ensuring the passage of the first bills. This retreat will brings together members of the two houses of the National Assembly to discuss and harmonize their positions on the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Bill is a step, in my view, in the right direction. We are aware that this 7th Assembly has taken bold and deliberate steps to address some of the strategic deficiencies identified in our ENLCF legislation. However, there are issues that need to be addressed. The bill we are going to be discussing today is one of such, and there are also others which Mr. President has actually submitted to the National Assembly. These are the Process of Crime Bill, which seeks to establish a central agency to manage the process recovered from completed criminals and the mutual assistance for criminal matters. I am also aware that the Executive is preparing to submit the Harmonized Terrorism Prevention Bill 2014 and also the amended Money Laundering Bill. Our prayer is that when all of these are submitted, working together, we will be able to fast track all of this. Perhaps at this juncture, I should also just mention the fact that the Financial Action Task Force, which is really the body that sets standards for the world to follow in the fight against money laundering, terrorist financing, and purpose of mass destruction, is actually thinking of enlarging the membership of the FATF, and it's a limited number. And there are many countries that are willing and are putting their application to be considered, and Nigeria is one. The fact that we do not have this sort of laws in place will work against us. I do know that an ad hoc group has been set up, but frankly, nobody knows the membership of the ad hoc group. So as you are aware, the proposed bill is designed to provide a sustainable and credible legal framework for the center in Nigeria, as is the accepted practice in other jurisdictions. The bill seeks to provide the FIC with operational independence and autonomy and greater ability to provide financial intelligence to all relevant competent authorities in order to strengthen anti-money laundering and combating the financing of terrorism. If we look at recommendation 29 of the 40 recommendations of the FATF, it tells us precisely how FIUs should be put. And I will quote from that recommendation. It says, countries should establish an independent FIU that serves as a national center for the receipt and has permitted requesting and analysis and dissemination of suspicious transaction reports, STR, and other information regarding potential money laundering or terrorist financing. It is pertinent to know that since November 2013, I don't know how many of us know about this, that Nigeria has been disconnected from the secure web of the Edmond Group of Financial Intelligence Units due to the concerns expressed by some members over the autonomy of the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit. What this means is that Nigeria can neither receive nor share financial intelligence with other 139 member countries of the Edmond Group, money laundering, terrorism, and proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. More worrisome is the fact that it is happening at a time when Nigeria needs information use, considering the challenge of terrorism. A group came from the Edmond Group to carry out a review on our NFI sometime in February of this year. Although no formal report has been made, the signal that we get is that the recently concluded assessment by that group is not positive. And this is why we are very concerned that if the legal framework is not in place by June of this year, reason being that the Edmond Group plenary holds June 1 to 6 of this year, is only at plenary sessions that decisions are taken. We are therefore concerned that if the legal framework is not in place by that time, our NFI stands the risk of being suspended from the league and that really will be disastrous. This also has wider implications and may actually hinder application to membership of the FATF. Last month, Nigeria did apply to the FATF for membership, and that application is under consideration, and some of the things that will come to play will be the reverse legislation which we have in place. So it is actually in the light of this and the negative impact that not having this in place that I'm urging distinguished senators and honorable members to review and adopt the bill based on the recommended FATF standards. Perhaps I should also mention that in going through the FATF standards, there are guidance notes and interpretative notes to guide jurisdictions. Now, in the guidance notes, there are basic elements which must feature in our legislation. What the bill has attempted to do is to ensure that these elements which relate to the technical compliance have been captured. So, this is what is in the bill that is before you. So, I wish to assure you that the Presidential Committee on FATF is committed to working with all stakeholders to ensure that Nigeria adheres to all the standards. Let me therefore end my brief remarks by urging all of us to make objective contributions during this retreat, which we hope will assist our distinguished senators and representatives at the National Assembly to make sound laws for the overall good of our beloved country. Thank you for your kind attention and wish all of us a successful retreat. God bless us.
And that will not be very good for us. Move on to invite Honorable Adams Jagaba, the Chairman, House of Reps Committee on Drugs, Narcotics and Financial Crimes, for a brief remark.
This all-important assignment we're about doing today, I want to use this occasion to actually thank first the Presidential Committee, the Defense and the Ministry of Justice, the President himself, the Senate President, Mr. Speaker, and all members of the National Assembly, for bonding the Ninth Kingdom, for us to come with the copies of the documents we are working on today. Each and every person mentioned, and some that I'm not going to mention, spent sleepless nights to make sure we have this document. So thank you so much. Your services are to Nigerians and to Nigeria. I think it's only God that can reward that. What is this bill all about? Based on the public hearing we had, the stakeholders that came spoke in unison. Yes, there's an intelligence unit, but the only problem we have is that the word independent is not attached to it. And they all agreed to the public hearing that that word needs to be inserted. Not just be inserted, to be implemented to make sure we get one, to meet our international obligation. That's why we're here today. To make sure the findings of the House, the findings of the Senate, are harmonized in such a way that can reflect the wishes of Nigeria. that can reflect our international obligations. Now, it baffles me at times when I see governors, when I see members of the executive arm of government begging for foreign investors to come, clamoring for foreign investors to come. And every day we don't see them. Why? There is no instrument that can protect the investment. By the time the browse and check, they will now discover Nigeria is not safe for investment, because if something else goes wrong, how do they go about it? The Financial Intelligence Unit, an independent one for that matter, is the solution. It's going to make the researchers, people, a lot of foreign investors who contact it for information. There will be information exchange between Nigerian unit and other international bodies. With that, foreign investors, you don't have to pay them. They will come in. So what we are doing today, we may not understand the immediate benefits thereof. But I tell you, posterity. One day, if you sit down and reflect that you are part of this exercise, you will be proud that you are Nigerian. So as we start this exercise today, I pray that God, in His infinite mercy, give us the wisdom to do the right thing, the wisdom to stand our ground and do just that thing that is desired to make Nigeria move forward. Thank you very much.
Of the Senate Committee on Drugs, Narcotics and Financial Crimes, distinguished Senator Victor.
Minister of Justice, representative of the Justice for All, distinguished resource persons, representatives of the Central Bank of Nigeria, the Insurance Commission, is it? Security Exchange Commission, the powerful clerks of the houses of the committees in the two houses, clerk of Senate Committee and clerk of the House Committee, committed support staff of the Secretariat of the Committee, distinguished invited guests, gentlemen of the press. Let me start by expressing my deep appreciation and indeed the appreciation of the National Assembly for this meaningful partnership and unique engagement that has culminated in this retreat with our development partners, particularly the Justice for All and then the Minister of Justice that has served as the engine room for this exercise. We appreciate the support and indeed sacrifice for making this day possible. Our hope is that the purpose for which this retreat has been organized will be achieved. I recall that the Senate considered the bill for an act to establish the Financial Intelligence Center on the 15th of December, and we referred to us for further legislative action, and we were to have reported in 4 weeks' time. Suffice to say, we are clearly 3 months behind schedule. Distinguished senators, honorable members, before us today we have the consolidated bill. Consolidated bill made of the executive and the private members that were sponsored in both arms of the houses. The bills consolidated, one clamoring for the establishment of an agency, the other one for a center. Both have diverging views on the desirability or otherwise of the board, that is, the size of the board, who makes it to the board, how differently shall the board be from that of the EFCC board? Shouldn't we have a firmly constituted, highly professional center that should be felt more than seen and heard? One of the very important issues of institutional rotation Should the center report directly to the Attorney General, or the Minister of Justice, or the Minister of Special Duties, or to the President, the NSA, or the National Assembly as in the case of the office of the Attorney General the Auditor General of the Federation? Should the center have powers to impose fines and levies? And these powers regulatory powers? Wouldn't this create clashes with the existing regulatory agencies? What are the consequential amendments that we need to make? We need to take a critical look at this and navigate into safety. How do we explain, for example, the necessity for giving the powers to coordinate transactions on the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction to a financial intelligence center, a center that is not a military outfit? If you look at Section 5, subsection 1 of the bill we have, it talks about this. Section 5D sounds like a regulatory power. Therefore, what is the difference between Section 5, paragraph G, paragraph M of the proposed bill? Now, these are issues we need to resolve as we consider the close, we take the close by close consideration of this bill. I believe that after today, when we rise up from this exercise, we would have come up with an acceptable report that will be ready to be laid on both the floors of the National Assembly. That would have fast-tracked the process of getting the Financial Intelligence Center established. Before I sit down, let me say that as a committee of the National Assembly, in fact, joint committees, we remain committed to working with the Presidential Committee, indeed Justice for All, the Ministry of Justice, and ensuring that all observed deficiencies with the legislations, the anti-money laundering and terrorism financing legislations in the country are expeditiously passed. I will therefore appeal on another note that as soon as both hands take the process of crime and then the mutual legal assistance bills at second reading, we will need yet another interface like this to enable us to consider the bills and get them passed expeditiously. On this note, I'm told I'm supposed to declare the retreat open. I, distinguished Senator Victor Lam, Chairman, Senate Committee on Drugs, Narcotics and Financial Crimes, do have the real privilege of declaring this retreat open. I thank you.
Prepare our minds for the next round of business, which is a clause-by-clause assessment and evaluation of the bill. But before that, please, let's see how we can get ourselves entertained via a tea break. Thank you very much.
Both houses of the National Assembly on presidential bill for an act to establish the Financial Intelligence Center. Ordinarily, each arm is supposed to work separately. That we have come for a joint retreat. It means that we will have an adopted, or let me say, a harmonized report. That, in essence, will fast-track the process of passing the bill for an act to establish the Financial Intelligence Center.
So, how soon are we going to see this?
Well, very soon. As soon as we rise from here, I believe that when the National Assembly returns from the Easter break, this will be passed.
If you listen to the regulation by the chairman of the Financial
Presidential Committee that Nigeria stands the risk of not being taken seriously by June this year. Are you worried?
That is essentially why we have decided to fast-track the process. We are worried and we are working around the clock to ensure that we meet the June deadline for all the legislations to be in place so as to meet the June deadline. So we are worried, and that's why we are here. Thank you. Karim, D. Put in place an effective system to combat money laundering and terrorist financing. Okay. The existing paragraph D is redrafted to read as follows. Strengthen the existing system for combating money laundering and associated predicate offences, financing of terrorism, and proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. Any comments? Sugaba?
That cannot be captured in the bill.
Okay.
It cannot be part of the bill. It has to be part of the remarks. Yeah.
You will see that the existing paragraph B is drafted to read as follows. And that one is numbered E. Is it number E or D? Okay, D.
Look, if it is for numbering, that can be done when we are cleaning it up.
My evidence is not on numbering. If you compare the way the old law is written and the present one, the old one puts in place an effective system to combat money laundering and terrorist financing activities. That one is well captured and it is less ambiguous. You see, in legal drafting, when drafting is made, you let it speak for itself rather than people trying to see the mind of legislature what actually they meant in drafting a particular draft that way. If you look at the old D, to me, it looks so simple and very, very understandable. If the problem we have here is just to also include weapons of mass destruction and all the like, we can just add weapons of mass destruction to the way D was in the old act. Thank you.
One and the other one that is there as E. Which one do we adopt? The redrafted.
Yes.
The E which is redrafted as paragraph F now.
No. F is D now. F is D. E.
F is now D.
E.
F is now E. Okay. Okay, so E, make provision for the agency.
No, center.
Well, okay, center.
Yes.
Make provision for the center to exchange information with financial intelligence institutions and similar bodies in other countries in matters relating to money laundering, terrorist financing activities, and other predicate offences. Carry?
We remove the
Okay, even C shall be independent in the discharge of his duties and functions under this act, and for that purpose shall not take directives from any person or authority. Carry?
This is too wide though.
Okay.
Let's make sure it's not. Let's not create a
Let's make sure that number one, that it does not is not in conflict with any part of the Nigerian Constitution, and that we don't create a monster.
This one is Financial Intelligence Center. Very thinly staffed, but highly professional body that should be felt rather than harm and seen. If we want a very elaborate board like this, what's the difference between this and EFCC, for example? Well, most of the people here will be people who will be drawn from the EFCC board. I don't know if you understand the argument, but we rely on our collective wisdom. Thank you.
I think your submission is important, because when we begin to create a board and we are saying this, either executive secretary or whatever will not take instruction from any authority, as clearly spelled out in CORRUPTION. The board may have overbearing influence on the operation of the center. So, in my opinion, I don't think we need a board for this.
Mr. Chairman, but we also need to note that generally there is a purpose for a board in any organization to make policies, and so that the also management of the center do not constitute themselves into both policy makers and implementers, so that there is some form of check and balance. So to that extent, it may be necessary, even if we want to have a small board, unless we have to also subject them to another policy-making body, which I don't think is the purpose of the bill.
Is to add to the bureaucracy, which is unnecessary.
I think, honorable colleagues, these board members of the church, there is no outsider there. The agencies that are supposed to benefit from this unit we are talking about are the board members. So the goal is that they meet from time to time, see and review the activities, the information they receive, the information to be passed to them. They pass the information to them. There is no outsider there. All of them are stakeholders that will go to this unit to get information regarding their own agency. So there is no outsider. So my personal opinion is that we need it.
I don't know what you are just calling me this kind of. I think I'm more intelligent than anybody here, but I believe we have brothers and sisters here from the Ministry of Justice and other institutions. But be as it may, I have been reading on and on to convince myself whether actually we need a body or otherwise. Because I discovered a lot of the applications. I just quickly asked somebody to go and buy me this act on the street, Honestly, I just asked my boy, just please go and buy me something. Because I was thinking before we even start, we could have been supplied with copies, money laundering, AFCC, ICPC, and so many other things. We need to be guided. Because as we go along, I discovered there are so many duplications of duties and functions. And we need to know exactly what we are talking about. But being as it may relation to the board, you can discover those that are conceived to be members of the board, other than the chairman. All the rest are ex-official members. And they are all coming from this AFCC Act. They are more all the same thing. Just repeating ourselves. Are we conceiving I want to kill AFCC in order to revive this one as a board, or what I want to do? This is what worries me. I've been trying to compare with SSS, for example. Also the security advisor, for example. They're not a board, but they function. But they report somewhere. Either to Mr. President or somebody else. Very powerful. Because this is an important institution. Are they reporting directly to Mr. President or to SSS or to the National Security Advisor or to AFCC or to whom? Or Minister of Justice? That's my main concern. I'm just trying to find out. Because you discover the board should die for 4 years and they retire. Who are this board? Because the chairman, there's nobody. Nobody. And so as we go in the sequence, we discover it's an abuse of process. So we have to find a way how can we link this. We have to maybe think elsewhere in other organizations across the world. How do they operate? Under what functions? I think we need to be guided in this kind. We need to capture that kind of thing. But otherwise, I don't know. You call a director here and there in this institution, he sits here and he knows AFCC, sit there, and as official members to retire or do what? And you're even telling Mr. President, you retire after 4 years, renewing, do what? Honestly, I'm lost. I don't know what we are talking about. So I thought the experts here, if we have any expert around us, tell us in other institutions, how do they work? I happened to attend across the election days in the US, and we debated a lot on this issue. I want them to be independent, but how? Please tell us in the context of Nigeria.
Okay, I thought I'll call on Ike. Maybe you can speak to the issue, address.
I thought the argument profiled by Honorable General, the purpose for this board is nothing more than bringing the stakeholders. Every member of the board, like Honorable Jagaba said, is a stakeholder in the functions that will be carried out by the NFIC. And the purpose is to bring them together to be able to enrich the work that the center is going to do. It will afford them the opportunity from time to time to meet and advise the center and provide policy direction for them. Like the distinguished senator said, apart from the chairman and possibly the DG, there's no outsider that we sit on the board. They are all ex officio. But they are not ex officio in the sense that we are recycling retired people to come and sit on the board and leave. They will lose their positions as soon as they leave the institutions they are representing. So it's not a recycling.
Just like Ike said, you find that all of the people except the chair are all official members, ex-official members. The truth is this: we are talking about operational autonomy. Nigeria decided to have an administrative type FIU. Now, when you have an administrative type FIU, it means that you are not going to situate yourself within another agency. Now, what does this board do? They come. Since they are coming from the stakeholder institution, it does mean that whatever challenge that may come up can actually be debated amongst themselves and action taken. The autonomy that we're talking about, because I think the fear here is, should the board become monstrous by wanting to interfere in the activity? That should not be. And I think that is the reason why it is said that nobody would give a directive to the center. Now, the autonomy that we talk about has to do with having the right to receive information STR, having the right to analyze, and having the right to disseminate to competent authorities without any interference. The board has specific functions assigned. And I think
we have seen that here.
So for
me, we wanted you to speak to the desirability of others, and I'm sure you.
I'm saying I think that we need that.
Distinguished and honorable members.
I think I align myself wholly with the submission of the chairman of the Presidential Committee as well as my friend from the Ministry of Justice. The FIC as being conceived is one that every one of us want to have confidence in, want to be able to relate with. If you are a stakeholder, you should have the reason to be a stakeholder. And if you are a member of the governing board, then that gives you a reason to ensure stability and the tenure of that particular organization. So I believe it's a very good, it's a step in the right direction to have a board. And the question I believe that asks, who does the board relate to? I think that that's a point that this National Assembly would have to decide. But there should be a board. Thank you so much.
Thank you. 2. The board shall consist of a chairman, A, chairman, B, representatives not below the directorate cadre of the following 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then the Director General. Carried. 3. The chairman shall have a recognized degree in any of the areas of law, accounting, public or business administration, and at least 20 years corporate experience, 5 of which must be relevant to the functions and duties of the center. Carry.
Why not engineering? Why not
Sorry, remind me of your name again. This time you raise your hand, I want to call you.
Yeah, Akumbiade is my name. Nathaniel Akumbiade.
Akumbiade?
Yes.
Okay.
Should I go on?
Yes, please.
Yeah. What will it mean to 20 years? My take on that is that's not just setting the bar too high. 20 years. In law profession, once you are 10 years at the bar, you can become a judge. Thank you.
Yes, while we were working on this bill, we debated extensively on this. And the consensus within the committee was that we needed someone who has experience, who studied in relevant or related courses with what the center is assigned to do. And we agreed that the work on the center touches on law, on finance, on accounting, on business administration, and related courses. And
not engineering.
IT.
Yes, it has to do with IT. I don't know why we. Okay. Those are the.
Definitely not engineering.
Definitely not engineering.
Why?
Because their work is financial intelligence.
Yes.
And this has to do mainly with accounting, finance, and they ought to enforce laws related to financial intelligence. It's not engineering, it's not medicine, it's not pharmacy. I agree that maybe we overlooked IT, but not just IT. IT with relevant experience in financial intelligence.
The
state, will it be nice if we say that a 10-year, like my colleague said, in law, once you are 10 years, you can become a judge. But we are looking for experience. We are looking for experience, and we agreed within ourselves that that experience is not easily found here now in Nigeria. We needed people who are versed in their chosen areas. And we are talking of the chairman. And I have had the sentiments expressed by honorable members that we do not want to create an institution that will not bend to anybody. We need a sound chairman who can direct and properly guide this institution. We don't need a 30-year-old to be the chairman of that agency. We need people who are experienced and who have proven themselves in their chosen professions.
We should direct ourselves to the specific requirement. If it is age, we don't need to bring that age into the number of years of experience. If it is, we say age, qualification on age, as we have in the electoral process, when you want a particular age limit to apply. If it is educational qualifications, I beg to disagree with him, because the chairman, the most important thing is intelligent chairman, competent chairman, and it is not restricted to any profession. As a matter of fact, this is not the right forum. If we want to argue it, we look at intelligent quotient of people who are able to do engineering science courses, and you see that they are higher. But this is not the place to mention.
I disagree with you.
What is important, Mr. Chairman, for this process is that I think, number one, 20 years is too high. At worst, it should be 15 years. At worst. Otherwise, we find ourselves doing this law again. And I want to point out to him that we would need foreigners for this important, delicate job. It must be in Nigeria. So let him bear that in mind. But at worst, it should be 15 years. and the important thing is educational qualification. It should be open to all levels, because there is also, in addition, Mr. Chairman, cognate experience, so that takes care of it. So with that, you will now get a professional who has cognate experience. So you don't need to restrict it to other professions, otherwise some of us will carry placards. Thank you.
Limit ourselves to years of experience, we run into trouble. Why do I say so? I chaired the act, one of the best acts, I think, as ICPC, 1992 to 2003. I was the chairman of the committee that actually worked hard on that act. It is one of the best acts today. That time we insisted there should be a judge of so. Based on that requirement, Akande was blocked. He is used to long protocol of law to the extent that he did not achieve anything to the level that was. Yes, I was the chairman. Yes, very highly limited. Now, see, when we have whatever, now the issue of FCC, when we came in, the emphasis was on police. Now already we have issues. Because number one, Nigerians don't trust police. And one police will investigate all this order. Nigerians don't have trust on that. Now we have to kind of graduate to the level of people of a high integrity. When you have that, when you have high integrity, you can be engineer. When you have leadership qualities, you can assemble the right people to do the right thing for you. Our president today, I'm not sure he read political science. But today, he's governor. The former president of Obasanjo was a mining engineer, but at least he was able to assemble things that can help you. So I think it's the ability to assemble the right thing to work. And when you have the stakeholders to work with you, have the good advisors to work with you, you can be a very good leader. Doesn't matter your profession. The one you have somebody with the right qualification, the character, name, the one you do that.
Okay, yes, sir.
Lending their voice to the need for the board. Drawing from the experience of some of the agencies we've had to work with, I felt that maybe we needed to define the roles of the board a little bit firmer so that it does not become a clog in the wheel. But looking down, further down, I saw that there was a place where the roles of the board were further defined, and I felt when we get there, we'll look at those a little bit. But I totally agree with the issues that have been raised.
Disciplines will need to include ICT.
No, just a recognized degree.
Just a recognized degree.
Yes.
So no need for law, no need for accounting, no need for public business, and all those. A recognized degree. We at least how many recognized degrees?
50 years.
I get you. I was going to draw attention. 15 years. At least 15 years. Secretariat. Please note, instead of 20 years is what? 15 years. So section 3, that bit is carried. Section 4, carried. Okay? Term of office. Yes. Yes. When certain, yes, somebody with a good recognized degree, somebody of what? High. Sorry, Jagawa was going to draw attention to an admission.
Yeah, we saw him. Yeah, I listed. Yeah.
What are the immigration?
Immigration is there.
They are not. Nigeria Police, Security Exchange, Insurance Commission, ICPC, Drug Law,
And 2 months.
BFCC.
Customs and immigration.
Custom and immigration.
Finance is already
What?
Finance is there. No, the number of agents, stakeholders, customs and immigration.
Now, when you have
Finance.
when you have finance, is a different ball game. the custom deal directly,
of course.
yeah, with clearing of goods and all those stuff. So I think it's a different thing.
So under the board, we are adding immigration and customs.
Yes.
Carried?
Carried.
Carried. Tenure of office, section 4, carried?
Shall be appointed all of these for a term of 4 years. Who are these other members? They are all ex-official members. So is it only the chairman that we are just emphasizing or other members? So if it's only him, we better concentrate on the chairman. The rest are ex-official members. So it is from the ministry that they are being nominated or other agencies of government. So we are just emphasizing, unless we are going to bring external members in addition to the chairman. So I feel all officers are term 4 years and then appointed. In fact, we are just indicating that they are going to be independent of even their agencies. If I happen to be a director and I happen to be appointed on this board, I will not even think about, I will be having double job. Why and otherwise my nominations just come because I happen to come from that institution. So better think about it. Yeah, no salary, but look at it. Whole office for a term of 4 years and build the board appointment for another term of 4 years and no more. Are we referring to whom are we talking to?
The chairman.
To the chairman. Then we are talking about the whole board here, from the opening.
Yes, but even if, for example, the chairman, Shugaba, if you are 100%, irrespective of your performance, what is not stated? No, 4 years plus another 4 years, no more. Is there? Yes.
It's not there. It is there. It's not there.
That one is 4B. Hold office for a term of 4 years and be eligible for the appointment for another term of 4 years. Is there now 4B and C? Okay, sorry. Please. 5 now. Section 5 was deleted. So section 6 will now become section 5. Functions of the center. And the explanatory note says section 6 of the original draft, now section 5, has been improved upon to reflect current international best practices. We need to go through those practices. 1. 5A. The functions of the center are to receive and collect currency transaction reports, suspicious transaction reports, and other information, including records of wire transfers relevant to money laundering, financing terrorism, and proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, and related activities from financial institutions and designated non-financial institutions as required under the Money Laundering Prohibition Act, Terrorism Prevention Act, or any other relevant laws and regulations. Carried? Carried? Yes, sir.
Various regulated functions to what we presently have under the EFCC and SCPC, and to see if there is indeed no duplicity.
Everywhere that there's a provision for these functions in the EFCC Act, we have done consequential amendments because EFCC should not be receiving suspicious transaction reports or CTI reports. Reports should ordinarily go to the financial intelligence unit, not to the EFCC. EFCC is to prosecute for financial and economic offenses, not to receive intelligence reports, financial intelligence reports. That is why we are doing this exercise. This is the financial center who ought to receive all these reports and disseminate to all law enforcement agencies for their various functions. Not just the EFCC, the police, the SSS, the NTLE, everybody receives this financial intelligence report from this center and use it to do their work.
Okay. Voting.
Section 5, is it carried?
Let's go close by close.
Close by close, okay.
Go to B.
B.
A is carried.
A is carried. B. Analyze, process, interpret, and assess the information and reports received under paragraph 8 of this subsection and undertake operational and strategic analysis in relation thereto. Carried?
Operational. What do they mean by operational?
Undertake operational.
Function. I think that that we should underline. I think it's in the right direction.
Given is being perceived as a center, and EFCC is being made to operate on the information being at the center, and other security agencies. So if we now give the center the right to now operate, that's Mr. Chairman, I also went to school, but that's why I want to be informed of what we are asking. The operational is ambiguous to me, if it can be explained. Thank you.
Let the SSS speak on this.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Usually the FIU receives substantial transaction reports from banks. As soon as it gets to a threshold where it becomes suspicious, the banks automatically send to the FIU. And the FIU is then obligated to disseminate this STR to law enforcement agencies that are relevant in that regard. What they've been doing, what we expect will happen, the operational issue there is basically this. Once the banks, for instance, sends the STR to FIU or FIC has been conceived, it is obligated to disseminate quickly as soon as it receives it to EFCC, to SSS, to NDA, to relevant drug enforcement agencies who are now supposed to act on the basis of investigation and work on it.
What it just said. Why can't we stop somewhere like this? Analyze, process, interpret, and assess the information and report received under paragraph A of this section. Full stop. Because this will capture the workings of A, when we say it. But when you go back and say operational, you are bringing conflict. In the long run, there's going to be a lot of conflict. And we are making a board, independent board, and there's going to be some complex application of duties. Okay. So we better move away and undertake operational, so that we play safe.
Don't worry.
They receive the STRs and other reports. The reports could stand alone in themselves, but point to possible infractions here and there. The preliminary tracing and linking of such reports to buttress the fact that there is actual suspicion, which then informs the dissemination to other agencies, is what I see as the operational element. So if it's something, but I totally agree with my brother DK that we definitely need to clarify what operational means. But it's important, yeah, maybe to say review, do preliminary review and strategic analysis of those information. Thank you.
If we allow this current to work, that will limit, in my own opinion, to limit the prosecution from the EFCC. So you just leave as it is, depending on the view or what the
Analysis.
Who does it?
That is the language of the standard.
I said that you insisted that the operation should be left to EFCC, and there is indeed, it is about the analysis. In the light of this now, are you okay with this? DK?
For operational analysis.
strategic and operational.
Please, can you reframe the amendment again so that I put the question?
Let somebody bring it. You want to say something to what you have said?
Is actually driven by the requirements of the Financial Action Task Force as contained in Recommendation 29. In that Recommendation 29, they are given responsibilities to analyze the information operationally, strategically, and tactically. There are 3 responsibilities. Now, we have to be sure what we want to do, because if it is removing the word operationally because the choice of word does not suit us, then we have to be sure that we are not removing something that FATF at the end of the day would consider that we have not taken. So it is actually a technical responsibility, and that is the language of the FATF recommendation.
So,
you see, in considering post-bad laws, other than issues raised on this table, we should also advance our mind to what operates in other institutions. If what operates in other institutions is the word operation, so be it. If it is not so included, then we say we let it go. Please let us be properly guided, because we are on this table so as to meet the best international practice. Thank you.
We are trying to make a law. In as much as our efforts will be geared towards satisfying specific objectives of the intended law, the situations in those countries and ours are not the same. Institutions that are in Nigeria may not be existing in those countries. So it is for us to do a detailed work by making sure that we do not duplicate functions while we are doing our law. Otherwise, it will be lazy legislation. So it is my observation that if the word operational will cause conflict, there are many words available to use. Or it can be done, not in particular this one. This one maybe have satisfied us. But I say it so that in respect to the 2 comments before now, so that we are not intimidated into trying to meet the requirements of the laws in other lands, while not taking careful consideration of situations in our country.
The responsibility to do the job. We don't have to copy Lantern and Sinker as they put it. If we have another institution doing our job, why do we settle another institution? We don't have to take everything 100%. Because if they ask us to say everything they are doing, and what they want to know, are we doing it? So if this institution just give us information for AFCC to operate, but always let them give that information. That is my worry.
Your Commissioner, let me just go back memory lane a little. By God's grace, I think I have been opportune to be a part of the process from the very beginning. And yes. And this is why I say I make a comment that EFCC is actually a child that was born in error. I say this with all due respect because at the time it happened, there was already the ICPC law in place. And at that time, it was 1999-2000. Nigeria had been blacklisted by the FATF. And we didn't know anything about it, because the letter had been sent to Nigeria, and it was dancing between the Ministry of Finance, the Central Bank, but it ended in the National Assembly. It was an essay to the president at the time, obviously, who happened to have been a member of Transparency International who attended a meeting of TIA in Brussels that this matter of blacklisting came on. That was how she brought a copy of that letter to Nigeria. So we did not understand the content. We already had the ICPC law in place. They wanted us to set up an FIU. But before the Obasanjo regime came on board, the previous regime had recommended the setting up of an economics crime commission. And what did the president do? The president thought that, okay, if you say I already have an ICPC and this is not sufficient, let us set up an economics crime commission. So that was how EFCC bill was sent. Having been passed, we then thought that we had complied. We then went for a face-to-face meeting. I remember the chair of that group there was an Italian, Mr. Mangoyi. And it was the then Attorney General who led us to that meeting. We said, we've already passed our law. We took the EFCC out. And they said, sorry, no, you're still not in compliance because your STRs are still going to different locations. You have some going to CBN, some going to NDLA, some going to FED. You need to have this in one location where analysis will take place and the outcome will be disseminated to competent authorities. So we then came back, and that is how the law was amended to say EFCC is the designated NFIU. When we did that, no, I'm coming to that, sir. No, National Assembly actually did that. However, after doing that, we said, yes, we have created an FIU. And we then said, look, we are now compliant. They said, no, you are still not compliant because there are elements that an FIU must have. And what are these elements? Operational autonomy. You must give it its own budget. You must not interfere. That was then what led to EFCC passing a resolution, which was dated sometime in 2004, creating it as an autonomous unit. Giving it, if you look at that resolution, all of the things that we are putting in this law are all stated there. Meaning that EFCC itself knows that this is what the position should be. But they do recognize that you cannot create such without going through a legislation. In fact, it is the reason today why we are not yet connected to the Egmont Secure Web. So I want us to be very clear. Now, EFCC is a law enforcement. NFIC is not a law enforcement. It's only to receive STRs, do the analysis, and then disseminate to those law enforcement agencies that need them. I thought I should just give this background for us to know. Thank you, sir.
You see, that is issue advice on the making of relevant guidelines by supervisory authorities as it considers appropriate to combat money laundering, financing of terrorism, proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, and other relevant activities.
Okay, finish information related to the financing and the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. Nothing more, sir.
Okay.
Guidelines by supervisory authorities. Issue advice is no more a information collecting and analyzing center. It is going to make an input on the making of relevant guidelines by supervisory authorities. Is this also a requirement of that international expectation? After collecting information and analyzing it, it will go on to issue advice on the making of the subsequent relevant guidelines.
We are looking at the fact that the agency does not have the capacity to make regulations and guidelines that will be binding on reporting entities. And the only way they can add value is by making recommendations or issuing advice to the relevant regulatory bodies that will make guidelines. And of course, we are looking at a repository. We are looking at an institution that gathers intelligence, that gathers financial information concerning almost every other entity that operates within the financial sector. They have some experience, they have some knowledge, and in the making of the guidelines that will aid compliance, they can make input. But this is not as if they are taking over the regulatory functions of the regulatory bodies.
Just advice.
Trying to create powers, special powers, for a new center. We are not trying to make them audit, have inputs, mandatory inputs. Over all the agencies, we have also painstakingly taken time to set up. We are here to meet the requirements. We are here to meet specific requirements and provisions. Let us not go beyond that. Let us not begin to make them determine, make inputs to the policies of bodies which we have charged statutorily, giving authority over certain sectors. Let us not begin to make them make inputs to that because they are not experienced, as claimed by him. That's my observation. Let us do up, meet the requirements of what we're here.
To actually give advice. Remember when my colleague was talking, he said it is an advice. They are not in a position to regulate. And the reason why we also suggested earlier on that stakeholders should be the ex-official members of the board, that this sort of thing can actually be discussed at that point. But advice given, we need not take it. They will not tell us to do this, but we think it will add value to what we do. That's why it was considered. But then, in your wisdom, you are the final authority. Thank you.
That is it. Issue advice on the making of relevant guidelines by supervisory authority, just as we did in the preceding section. Disseminate immediately to relevant authority. I also think we should particularize it to issue advice to who.
Advice on the making of the guidelines. It goes beyond advice because we are putting in the law for them to issue advice before the relevant guidelines by those agencies can be made. So my amendment is that we end with them issuing advice only to relevant, supervisory authorities. So that will now limit their role to issuing advice. Not issuing advice before those people can now make relevant guidelines. So my amendment is issue advice to supervisory authorities as it considers appropriate. Then it will now be limited to issuing advice.
No, sir?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
Issue advice. Do what?
To supervisory authorities as it considers appropriate.
The advice will be on what now?
Is it not already? It's part of the information you are giving. It's
part of it, but let us still even give them that information. Otherwise, it's part of the information.
For them to supply me with this information.
Okay.
So that's what
They make sure they ensure compliance. What are they going to do? Theirs is to get information and just pass it.
Distinguished, the process of getting the information, there has to be compliance. And already the banks don't have any problem with that. And when was that? The Burundi change and all other relevant bodies, they've been cooperating with these units since. They don't have any problem with that.
But can I listen to what? Do you think those institutions will not, if you see something what is the right, you will not do it? You have to be captured in the act. Yes. I mean, they are all responsible. These institutions are responsible.
No, sir. I disagree with you here, Shugaba. Shugaba, I disagree with you because we are specifying and delimiting what their powers shall be, what their function compliance. It is my responsibility that if by September you're supposed to give me a certain report and it is not there, I write to remind you, demanding and requesting for that information. That is an effort at ensuring compliance.
Inform this August city that the regulators have approached us and expressed reservations over this particular function. And they believe that the NFIU, as is being conceived, will be capable of discharging this particular function. And they have advised that we leave it to the regulators to ensure compliance by reporting institutions. I thought I should bring this to your knowledge.
Paragraph 8 is now amended as follows. Ensure compliance by reporting institutions with their obligations under this Act. Sugarman?
Yes, under this Act.
Are you okay with that?
I'm listening.
Not that you're listening, you're not. The compliance should be with regards to the provisions of only this Act. Not the other money laundering provision. So paragraph 5 was amended is carried?
Carried, yes.
Carried. Reports and statistics on the investigation and prosecution of economic and financial crimes, money laundering, financing of terrorism, proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, and related unlawful activities.
Carried.
Carried?
Yes.
H. Assist in the identification of the process of unlawful activities, the completing of money laundering, the financing of terrorism and proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, and related activities. Exchange information with similar bodies in other countries regarding money laundering, the financing of terrorism, and proliferation of weapons of mass destruction and related activities. Carried. Process, analyze, interpret, and assess information disclosed to or obtained by it under this Act. I'm the chairman and other. You're welcome, sir. Okay. Let's look at that.
Yes.
We now have to first
dissemination must be based on request.
Yes.
They can't just take customs information, or we have information about suspicious transaction reports in the customs. So every agency should have. No, it must be based on request.
No, Mr. Chairman, I want to understand this very clearly. I was thinking that the purpose of the center is that all this information, they should collect every information.
Yes.
And they immediately send it to the appropriate agency, which ordinarily, because they are not in possession of the information, will not know about it. So you do not expect an agency that doesn't know about the information to make a request for it. Except it is the normal routine information.
On their way to Nigeria with cocaine inside. Now, it's for NDA to come to this center and say, look, this is who is the owner of this container, we want to know something about it. We want to know something about it. So they don't sit down, just gather information, just freely distribute. No, it's when you have questionable transaction and you want information on that, the center now will sit down with you, give you the information you should decide.
Let me ask you. And now avails them of the information which NDLE may not be aware of. Internationally, as we move cocaine, they also trace it. So, and the right body now center we are setting up to get such information is this center. So when they get such information, which NDLE will not be aware of, are we not creating them to now forward such information automatically to NDLE? Do we now have to, for them to wait for
case where NBN is not aware of the transaction, but the information has been passed on by an international prosecution.
Thank you, Chairman. By Honorable Dike's a situation where this agency can secure information on their own along the line of the investigation, then they can make a request that we're investigating this. Any ground or point for us. This section is saying they must respond. So from one side, from the other side to the other side, I don't think anything strange in this.
Okay, sorry.
His name, Honorable Dike. If we will allow the Commission to be giving information based on requests, it means we will be burying so many things. Because certain things will be happening. They are the only people who have eyes to see. And things will be passing. Simply because there is no request, even if you are an international crime master, you will just allow them to be passing. Simply nobody requested for it. I think it's not good. This is my opinion. I'm not a lawyer, I don't know, but it's my opinion.
This. An agency can ask for an information. But look, that's the one of general nature. And it can equally ask specifically, tell me something about this bottle. You know, that kind of thing. They can directly ask for them. They may not have to wait. They can equally go directly and say, okay, tell me this information in case you have any. And they will set the ball rolling for them to go and find the information in case they don't even have the information. Because it doesn't mean that they have all the information of the world. They can ask, somebody can ask them and they can quickly start asking for it. My quarrel with the philosophy is based on a review of the request. I don't know what it means. I've been trying to read the meaning out of it, but I can't understand the meaning of it. Based on a review of the request. So what is the meaning of that? Why do we put that?
The FIU, as we've had in the past, and has been conceived, it has an obligation to immediately, on receipt of an STR, it's just an aspect of his work worldwide. I mean, any FIU worldwide, just an aspect to immediately disseminate that STR to the agency or the organization that requires it. Now, another role of the FIU, and which I work with the DSS, and this is what it is. We cannot directly go to the banks. When we are doing an investigation, and the investigation is still at a covert and a very quiet stage, the FIU provides the center by which you can get information from the banks and then act on it because of the investigation. So we then send a request to FIU and we say, we are investigating ABC, but we need to know about this financial details of ABC. Help us. And then they immediately respond. So that's what that aspect is for. So it's very relevant. It's an addition, yes.
When there is information that concerns you, they can give it to you. Anytime, inspectors taking care of that fair.
Yes, I would just say it's really not necessary to say in addition, because every clause under Section 5 is the functions of the center. So you can't go back and say in addition to K or in addition to A. They have the responsibility to perform each of those clauses, the functions in those clauses. So it's not necessary. They will still do it, sir. Whatever after they perform C, where the need arises, when the request is made, that is what the other section applies to.
The reason for each of those functions, and particularly with respect to the one that is to be disseminated immediately, there are what we call statutory reports. We have suspicious transactions reports. That suspicious transaction report means that there is something that needs to be investigated.
And when such report comes to FIC as in this case, such report is supposed to be disseminated immediately to the law enforcement agency that has responsibility to take action. But beyond such STR, there are other information which they also receive, and those information can only be given out on a need basis. They have to define need before they can give it out. So there are different functions on their own, and so